Acting AG Todd Blanche is set to have his confirmation vote next week. Many have called on U.S. senators to oppose Blanche's confirmation, including more than 24 Epstein survivors. Blanche, who spearheaded the file's release, has come under fire for, among other things, failing to redact the names of survivors from the released files. Epstein survivor Danny Pensky testified against Blanche at his confirmation hearing last week. Take a listen.
Well, Todd Blanche has been at the helm of the release of nude images of survivors, the outing of Jane Doe's, and the exposure of more than 100 victims identifying information and documents describing horrific acts of abuse, including my own. Instead of treating this release as its own violation and holding the man who led it accountable, you have a decision on whether you place him in the highest law enforcement position in this country.
Blanche, after that hearing, agreed to meet with the survivors. However, after their meeting with Blanche, the survivors doubled down, urging senators not to confirm the current acting AG. As they explained in a letter, quote, survivors received an hour of deflection, interruption, and gaslighting. Todd Blanche showed no remorse. The survivors referred to the meeting as a, quote, box-checking exercise. Danny Pensky, whose testimony you just saw, wrote in an op-ed, quote, if you hoped Blanche would offer survivors real accountability by meeting with us, he did not. If you hoped this meeting would resolve our concerns, it did not. Every senator should vote no on Blanche for Attorney General. Danny Pensky joins me now. Danny, welcome back to the show. Can you reiterate why, in your view, is Todd Blanche, the acting Attorney General, ill-suited to be the nation's top law enforcement officer?
Well, I think it's really simple. I think that actions always speak louder than words. And we have seen nothing but deflection from him. He often talks in circles around the issue. When you look at the facts of this case, we have 6 million files. We have over 1,200 victims, right, that are known by FBI memoranda. And we have a multitude of ways to prove that there are that many victims. You have 30 years of information. You have 5 administrations that have failed up until this point. And Todd Blanche has now pointed survivors back to the FBI to say, start over. After releasing all of our identifying information, including nude photos. So his actions are telling us everything that we need to know. He's not taking this case seriously. When asked if he read the files, he said that he did not. He said, you mean to read all 3 million, which, by the way, he's stuck on this number. He corrected us multiple times in the meetings, saying that there were only 3 million files, which we know that there are so many things that are missing. And so, he's correcting us and he's gaslighting us and he's saying all of this and still not giving us anything that is a good faith act.
Blanche and other administration officials admit that there have been mistakes surrounding the files release. So take a listen of this compilation from the administration.
If people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty. We did mishandle.
That doesn't excuse the mistakes of which I take responsibility, but it does mean that we tried to fix them. We complied with the act.
It takes a little time to review the stuff, to find the stuff, to redact things where you have victims.
Whenever we learned that any victim's name had been improperly not redacted, we immediately took the document down and fixed it.
Do these explanations cohere with your experience and the experiences of others that you know?
No, I mean, all of that information, we were sitting in the room when he was saying this, and our whole group of survivors looked at each other. We were like holding on each other's legs and just saying, like, what is he talking about? Actually, though, I would love to know what he's talking about, because it took my lawyers contacting the DOJ multiple times, begging them to take down my information. And I'm just one, right? We know that there are hundreds, or at least 100 victims that have been identified through the release. But I know my name came out in all 3 different document dumps. And By the third one, my lawyer had already contacted them multiple times. They had provided, my lawyer and another law firm provided 350 names before the deadline on December 19th, saying these are names that need to be redacted. And then, of course, the first document dump came out and I saw my name there and put everybody on alert. Lawyer went back and said, make sure that she's redacted. And then the second dump in January was just, it was awful. It was like all of my identifying information, my school, where I interviewed at the FBI, where I was going to school after that. Addresses, you name it, and it was in the files.
So Todd Blanche was named the nominee after serving and spearheading this potential release of the files for the then Bondi Department of Justice. What was your reaction when they named this person who had been so associated with what it was obviously a very painful period of your life? They named him to this position. And what do you want the senators who will vote on his confirmation to understand about what all of this has meant to you?
Well, I think the fact that we now know that he was in the Situation Room at the White House, and he's in the Situation Room and he's talking about reputational harm over active investigations or over protecting survivors while trying to get to the bottom of who these perpetrators are and why the perpetrators have been redacted. The fact that he's sitting in this White House Situation Room, that's not his job. That should never be the job of the highest law enforcement in our country. So I think most survivors were feeling, just disheartened isn't even the right way to say it. It's this like gut punch that you feel over and over, where you just feel like the re-victimization and the PTSD comes back in tenfold because you're like, why isn't our government protecting us?